Oh, you're welcome. Good evening, everyone. My name is Beth Guide. I'm with Vertical Web, and I am hoping to get through as much as possible tonight. A talk about the leaks that have come out and from Google and what that should do to help you guys get your strategy and get your strategy right. Before I go any further, what I want to say is if you have questions, please put them in the chat. Q&A, it starts to get hard for me to answer both, so I'd really prefer them in the chat, and then I can kind of go, and it's just a much easier interface. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and start, and I want to give you a little background about myself first, because I think to understand the perspective that I'm looking at this, you have to understand where I've come from and how I got here. So back in 1998, I decided that building websites looked like a very easy job for me to do, and went ahead and started a web design company. And the very first person out of the box said to me, "How do I get my website listed on Yahoo?" Google wasn't a thing yet at the time. And it started me down the road to start to understand how these indices work to be able to produce the results that it does. So they were very basic at first. I could put references to the movie Titanic and pull a top 10 ranking in, a matter of days. We used to have contests and would pick industries and say, okay, on a Saturday, we're going to put up a website and see how fast we can push it to the top of Google. And by that time, Google had come along. So we would do this on a regular basis. And we would just kind of go with it. The thing is that search has become far more complex, but what I've learned is some of the far more complex, also, the more things change, the more they stay the same. So what I want to say is if you've never really thought about how a search engine works or what it does to pick something, I want to explain what and how this kind of works to start with. Well, the first thing that it does is it has an algorithm, and what the algorithm is a mathematical set of computations that it performs and grades. When I explain this to new people, I kind of talk about it in the sense of maybe it's like ice skating. If you jump once, you get so many points. If you jump 3 times, you get so many points. If you do a backflip, you get so many points. And the person with the most amount of points wins. There's an artistic interpretation portion of that, but it does go in up against it. So Google's opinion is going to be the artistic parts of it. And then what you do right and wrong are going to be some of what we're going to talk through. So when I say these things, for many, many, many years, what we started with was whatever I put at the top of the page was what they ranked and utilized. The more I said it over and over and over again, the more likely I was to have the page rank. If I go back to the early 2000s, 2001, 2002, I might have to say a word, a key term, which is what this is all predicated on. I may have to say it, 28, 29, 39 times in a page for the algorithm to mathematically compute what I'm saying. Some of you have seen these things in the form of like a roofing company, Katie Roofing Company, Katie Mills Mall, Roofing Company, I-10, Roofing Company, West Houston, West Chase Energy Corridor, Memorial City, and just listed one after the next, spamming the word roofing company to a page. Those tactics used to work. They don't work anymore, so I don't want anybody to misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm back in 2005 as I'm talking to you. The Google came on the scene and they became a little bit more sophisticated. And they had a function built into it that was called PageRank. And the way they computed PageRank was how many people across the internet linked to your website. And they decided, as things moved up, the more links you had, the better off your website was. And you'll see even still to this day references to a PR5 website, PR7 website, PR1 website. And that what that stood for was PageRank, because they went ahead and decided based on how many links that you had was how well that your website was. So for example, back in the early days of, of my company, I had a web hosting website. We ran AdWords on the website, and we got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of backlinks to that website, which artificially inflated our page rank. Well, the page rank went up, our rankings went up, and things just, worked well. When we pulled the ads because they got very expensive, the page rank went down and we lost our rankings. Now, I am not advocating anybody go buy AdWords for any of this, because again, I want to stress I'm back in 2005 and 2004. I am not talking about now. All right. So I want you to understand what I'm talking about and where I'm talking about it. So as we came forward, you know, it became, well, you had to get links from this person and you had to get links from that person. And we had reciprocal links and we had links and we had links from this and links from that. So I'm going to imagine that some of you don't understand what I'm talking about links. And what I'm saying is it's a link from somebody's website to your website. And what that does is they count it as a vote. So if I am the Houston Chronicle and I link to your small business, that's a very important link. And therefore your small business is seen more favorable. And they kind of, that's how they kind of formulate that. A link from a peer may not be as powerful, but the more links you have, the higher your page rank went, the higher your page rank was, the higher your rankings were. And it kind of stayed that way. Now, one thing I want to give you kind of and say this is I'm giving you these items. It's similar to if I told you how to bake a cake and I said, put some eggs and some oil and some flour and some sugar, some vanilla, some bananas, whatever kind of cake you're making. So understand what I'm giving you is a recipe per se. But I need you to understand what some of these parts are before I kind of get into, some of the little more fine details. What I'm going also to say is there was 14,041 data points that were leaked. So what that is saying to you is that there's 14,000 things that they evaluate your website on. Now, I'm not going to anywhere even remotely closely touch all 14,000. So I don't want us to be, overly optimistic here, because I can't even, the 41,000, the 14,000 things would take me forever to even get through them all and explain them all to you contextually. So that's I just want you to know there's that many data points and that many things to be aware of. And I often say that I don't know whether I would have been able to adapt to Google and mutated with Google had I not started on the ground floor of all of this, because it's mind numbing all the things that they look at, which is, in part why I wanted to kind of do this with you all. Because I think that you need to understand, how much is out there and what it's looking for, and how it's, what it's weighting, what it's doing, because there's a lot of misconception about how you do this job and what do you do and how do you do it. For me, I do it like I breathe, because I look at something and it almost is like it lights up with the way Google would view it. And I get a lot of pushback from my customers sometimes because they're like, well, I don't like what you did here. And I'm like, well, it has to be that way. Well, why does it have to be that way? Because that's how Google interprets it. I'm going to say this up front is that Every one of you needs free Google traffic. Nobody is exempt from this. And the reality is that, at least to my mind, search engines built my business not because I'm in the search engine business. It's because I got out of bed, I understood how the search engine worked. And as I say this sentence, I hope nobody's offended by it. I bought the domain Web Hosting for Idiots. I optimized it for Google, and I signed up anywhere from 20 to 50 people a day for 5 years. And I have all these people that got here, and they never left, because although we came in on the premise that, the web hosting companies all think you're stupid, we always tried to help everybody. So I was able to build my business simply because I had a number 7 listing on a search engine that fed and set my business up. And I never had to spend one actual dime of money to make that happen. It was all understanding how the system works and then figuring out how I was going to utilize it to help my business. And I encourage every single one of you to do the same thing, because if you, I know myself, when I was a new business, I didn't have huge amounts of money to pay a large, 12, 15, 20, $50,000 a year was out of the question. So I sat down, picked this thing apart, and figured out how it worked to put it back together. Now, I come here every month and I tell you guys what you need to know. And after a significant period of time, I think you should be able to start piecing some of these dots together. What I found interesting as I was reading this document and the documents that keep coming out on it is, a lot of the things that I thought was right ended up being right. And things that I would say, and people would say to me, "You're not right. That can't be a thing." But ultimately they were. So I also know that this can be confusing to everybody. So there is that aspect to it. But I want to kind of try to touch base on some of it. If you don't understand what I'm saying to you, stick your hand up. I'll try to do the best I can to explain it to you. But I'm reading this Google Leak document with 27, 28-year-old eyes. I'm not reading them like I just woke up and became a search person. I'm not reading it as a programmer, although I do have my programmer reading through it for me because I've got some ideas of what I want to do with it for my customer base. Um, but as I say this, I want you guys to understand. So Google came in and changed the way search operated just simply by adding this page rank function. Now, if you've been in this class for any speakable amount of time, you've heard me say the word backlink. You always should be considering how or why it's something is going to support and get you a backlink. I've been telling you to write content for years. The reason why is because that serves as bait for a backlink. If you do a really good job, people make a link to you. All right. What this validated was that PageRank was a thing in 2005. And although Google has said for years that PageRank is gone, it actually is not gone. So we need to be concerned with links and how links work and how we can get them. Now, I'll give you for example today. Every year, I help support the entrepreneur program that Sandra runs. We've done it through in-kind donation. We've also done it through monetary donation. And today I had to go stand and hand the check to the board of trustees for $51,000 that helps go to the winners of the business plan competition. And I believe wholeheartedly in helping people that are just starting their business. I wish that I had a me running around somewhere that I could go listen to for a couple hours a day. I wish I had that. But I didn't. but I've done this class and tried to help entrepreneurs for the last probably 20 years. So, with that all said, I went and I went to this thing with Sandra, went and had my picture taken, and when I'm done here tonight, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write a press release that says that Vertical Web is happy to participate in this to support the entrepreneur system within Houston. That Houston has a I think Houston has an outstanding entrepreneur system, not one that I've ever really seen in other cities. The amount of help for upstarts, the amount of help that SCORE provides, the amount of help that HCC provides, um, has just been, it's just staggering, the programs that are out there. And I assure you that when I started my business, these were not there. So these are things that have evolved over time. Um, and I'm very proud to be aligned with. So I am going to sit down and write a press release tonight that basically says that, we were very happy to participate in this program, that we see the value of the incubator system here in Houston that helps get small business up and started. That, technically I'm still a small business. So I mean, I'm just a bigger small business than some of you, but I'm still a small business. I think I finally graduated out of micro business. I may officially have made the small rung. So with that all said, the reason I'm doing the press release, not the reason I did because I didn't know when I told Sandra I would head and support the program again in 2024, that they were going to ask us to come in and talk to the board of trustees and go present a check and have a photo op. But tonight I'll be writing a press release that I will be putting out on the news wires with the photo and HCC and touting the HCC program and so on and so forth. Because what's going to happen is it's going to get picked up by about 12 to 1500 news agencies across the country. I will have a link to my website from places across Texas all the way out to, the Wall Street Journal and Business Wire. What ends up happening then is that validates in Google's mind that I'm a valid company, that I do philanthropic activities, that I'm an authority in my space. They already see it on some level, they see it. But this further reminding them of things we do, that I should do that. Now, what that means for you guys is each and every one of you guys should sit down and think about, how do I help my community? What do I do in my community? Anything that your company can sponsor, do, help with, no matter how big or small your budget is, you then need to start to process, because every one of you in this room, bar none, is link poor. Okay. I can't tell you how many of y'all's websites I touch over time, and forever and ever and ever, I've got 1, 2, 5, 10 links built to a website. What that means is your page rank is extremely low. We need to get those page ranks up to a, PR5. So I've seen, one of the things I did, we made a commitment early on, in the predecessor company to this one, is I went and got a publicist. So I was getting articles out of the Chronicle. I've been getting them across the web. I made some really good connections at some of the TV stations. So I get featured from time to time. And when I do, I get a link back to my website. How I do that, and I'm going to advise every one of you to do this: when you give your company's name, give your company's name plus the .com. Because when you do that, it's more likely to get picked up. I know I'm spending a whole lot of time on links. At some point, I probably need to teach a link class here. It's very difficult to teach because I have so many beginners that come through here that it makes it somewhat difficult at times to do. So I'm not jumping up and down to do a link class. but I feel like it's something at some point that we probably need to maybe consider. Um, the next thing I'm gonna throw at you, and these are some of the really big high spots that I'm giving you, and then we can kind of whittle down to what do we need to do. I need you to understand what how these things are kind of factored, so you understand what we're looking at. Um, and I'm gonna say I've always said that SEO was like a three-legged stool, which was content, links, and then social. And where I'm gonna go with this next is I'm gonna say they are counting Chrome views on your website. Okay. So they're looking for websites that have a lot of views in Chrome. And if you don't have a lot of views, the algorithm is a lot harsher on you. Now, I could say to you, that means your small business is penalized because you don't have as many views, or I can tell you how to just do a better job to beat your neighbor. Okay? So one of the things that I will say is that and I've taught you these tricks. I just don't know that I knew that it was tied to a data point. It just always seemed to make sense to me. And it's not like Google comes and tells you what they do. So if I'm going to tell you about Chrome views and how many times people, look at your website, when I put a new blog post out, I built an email list. I send those blog posts out to email people. When I put a new podcast out, I send the email out to people. I have predicated a lot of my activity on this class. And what I mean when I say that is, first of all, I did something I said I would never do, which was put the class on the internet. And it's been one of the best things that I've ever done. And I was forced to do it because of COVID. So it's not like I'm a hero and I bent and was malleable and, was a good business owner. I was basically forced with a rope, around my neck to say, I'm going to drag you into doing this. So I went ahead and did that. And ever since we have run the video part of this, we've run the podcast part of this. And my sense, and again, I told you the kind of how I got here, because my sense of this was if I put up a written page, people would come and they would go, they would scan the page and they may or may not pay attention to it. If I add a video to a page, what I do is I hold the user on the page for a minute, and Google's going to think that page is more valid because somebody hung around for a second. And if I add the podcast to the page and that browser stays open and the connection stays active because they're listening to the podcast on that page, that's going to tell Google, hey, wait up a second. This page is really pretty popular. People are looking at it. People are interacting with it. People are engaging with it. And therefore, this website has more value. I did all of that not really knowing that these Chrome views, and I'm going to give a couple more terms attached to this in a second, were actually being monitored enough that it's going to affect how well my page ranks. So far, our ingredients are PageRank and then Chrome views. And you notice I'm saying the word Chrome because they're using their browser to report back to them what goes on. Now, I don't know, and actually I'm going to say something here. I'm going to disclaim it before I say it, which is this is my personal opinion. Google gives everybody stuff for free, but there really is no such thing in this world as anything being for free. And they're using your behavior in their web browser that they gave you for free as a way to improve their search results. In my opinion, giving somebody something for free so you can monitor their behavior is a little predatory. And I've always felt like that. It's like all the folks that use Gmail. Yes, that's exactly right. If the service is free, you are a product. It's just like Gmail. They are reading those emails, they're ranking those emails, they're understanding what people are talking about, what the trigger points are, and then they are taking that information and putting it forth back out into their search engine to manipulate whatever they're trying to manipulate. And again, that is truly my opinion on it, is that it's a manipulation tactic. They would probably say they're trying to improve their product. Okay, so just understand that there's, I'm kind of, I would never do something like that, but that's probably why I'm a micro business and they're a $40 billion gazillion, $400 billion behemoth. I've been doing it 28 years and slow and steady build up, but that's because I have done so not on the backs of my customers and not on the backs of the people that, have come across my path. Um, So I think that's now we're going to go back to talking more about these Chrome views in a second. The last thing they do is they determine what they think is spam. And their definition of spam and your definition of spam are probably two different definitions of spam. You probably think a spam is the king of Nigeria that's got, $45 million in his name that he wants to go put in your bank account because you've been such a swell person all this time. Google's definition of spam is basically over optimization, not adding anything to the embedment of the internet, not being a good citizen. Um, I could probably argue that they're not agnostic as far as free speech comes, for or against hot topics out there. They're they're weighting stuff. So they may think like if I said black shoes are the best shoes on the planet and that whole idea caught on and everybody started saying black shoes were great, and then they wanted to come back and say, well, we actually support people with blue shoes, so we're going to kind of we're going to assume that black shoe people with black tennis shoes, they're spamming our index, so we're going to suppress them and elevate the people that have blue shoes. So as I say that, yes, it's very easy to do because they've put some things in there that make it really easy to do. Now, I don't want anybody to think that I am being disingenuous or self promoting when I say this, because I've worked very hard to build the brand of Beth Guide. So when Google sees my name, they know that I'm an expert in the space. They know that it's a safe bet what I'm saying is good quality information. I have attached myself to organizations like SCORE and HCC, and I've gone out of my way to support them because they have supported me. And those relationships are extremely important because they're grading my website based on my relationships. If I had relationships with Charles Manson, if I had bad reviews about my business, they would have a bad opinion of my company and therefore suppress my ability to appear in a search. The reason I'm talking to you the way I'm talking to you about all of this is because what I want whether you're starting on your journey of owning a business, or you just decided you were going to do this, or you've been doing it 10 years and you're kind of just, I make enough to pay my mortgage every month, but things are getting more expensive. I don't know what to do. You need to be thinking this way, and what I will say is I am fortunate because I came out of a public relations background. It was easy for me to embrace what they said, although the first time I ever talked to an outside SEO company about my own business, and was before I truly had an SEO company. I didn't really start that part of the business in 2000 until 2008. We were primarily hosting and web design up until that point. But we had, Google came in, they put this backlink in, and all of a sudden GoDaddy had 1 million backlinks and they were a PR10, and here's my pittance with a PR3. So we just kind of went away. So I was looking and trying to, and they started talking to me about putting up pages and putting up articles and how they were going to build links and how they were going to do this and how they were going to do that. And it was all well, fine and good. It was good advice. But my original answer to that was, how as a small business owner am I supposed to keep up with this? And I think it's a fair question, but I think that there's many avenues in our lives that lend ourselves to having this kind of thing. So what I mean when I say that is I answer anywhere from 30 to 50 emails easily a day, and probably 2 to 3 times more depending on the day of the week. But inevitably, there's a question in there that I can take and utilize to do a talk on. There's something that I can write a page on. I had a meeting with a prospective client last week. And anybody that knows me long enough knows that I am not short on opinions, and if you ask me, I'm gonna give it to you. I've never been a person to mince words. Or really care whether I offended you, because at the end of the day, I'm giving you the best advice. I'm not ever going to give somebody advice because that's what they want to hear. If you walk away and don't hire my company, that's on you. That's not on me. That's kind of how I look at it, because I always put my knowledge on how I'm going to help that business. I ended up in a 5.5 hour conversation because the first thing that came at me was, well, how do I know you're not like other SEO companies that all they do is talk about clicks and traffic? Well, my job is to build clicks and traffic, but I don't think increasing your traffic by 2 people a day is a win. I think for you guys, you need to start to wrap your head around this, because for you guys, maybe 2 to 5 people extra a day is a win, because it's more than what you've had. So that's why you need to learn how to do this, not to the degree that I know, but at least be aware. Be aware that when somebody calls for your swim team, the first thing you should ask them was, will I get a link on your website that links back to my website? Because if they do, and you can get a link out of Kingwood High School from it because you gave money to their boosters for $25 or project graduation, do it. If you're not aware that you have to do that, then you don't know, and you probably hang up the phone, and either you do it because it's the right thing to do and you want to help, or you say, well, my bill over here is due, this went up, and I'm barely treading water, so I'll pass this year and get it next year. In the conversation, and this is a point that was in one of these 14,000 data points, is something that I have been saying. And I'm going to admit to you that I probably am one of very few that say it, and say it to this degree. When you buy a domain and that domain is brand new, there is a restriction put on that domain. And I don't care what you do to it, short of spending a big pile of money on building backlinks to it, you are not going very far, very fast for probably 2 years. And that sucks if you're a brand new business owner, and you all should be scrolling in there saying, what do we do? How can that be? Well, that's just the way it is. Now, here's the thing. There's a whole aftermarket out there that you can buy domains that have been let go by their original owners. Some of them have been squatted on for years. Some of them have been used and the company went out of business and they turned it back to the registry. But those domains are not penalized. They're not restricted. And I kind of have put some breakpoints in, and this wasn't in the leak, but I think my breakpoints are pretty accurate. I've always said if your domain was registered from the beginning of time. Hold on, what do you mean? You are SEO for idiots, not Huckleberry SEO for dummies. No, I'm not any of those people. No, I'm not. No, my company's name is Vertical Web. I was web hosting for idiots, and I may even have SEO for idiots. I may have that domain. I think I registered it at one point. But then the world's changed, and everybody thinks when you say somebody's an idiot, you're being insultive instead of getting the joke, which is I'm trying to help the people that don't really know. So, no, my company's name's Vertical Web, if that's what you're asking. And I wouldn't get involved in all of that because if it wasn't written in the last week, it probably isn't a book to go buy or the right stuff. Anyway, let me go back to my used domain thing. So any domain that is registered, and I'm going to use the word to the left of, which on a timeline, if I go left and right, no, my company is not SEO for idiots. The original website I had was web hosting for idiots. As the original, I did web hosting, not SEO. I think I own SEOforidiots.com. I actually think I own it because I was intending to do that, except then it kind of got really weird with the word idiot and that people were like, oh, you're calling names. And people went from understanding that they were the person I was talking about to too worried about what I was to the word and not really understanding what I was saying. But that's a story for a different day. So, John, I'm going to answer your question. Your question is a really good one. And yes, I will have a replay on my website. Score has it sometimes too, but I should have it up by the weekend or so. All right. So I want to make sure that this one gets up and gets out because it's really kind of important. Anyway, age of domains. So anything from 2004 left and go back to 95, 90, I think the oldest I've ever seen is 95. Those domains seem to have no restrictions on them whatsoever. So to put this in perspective, I rebranded my company to Vertical Web 2 years ago to roll in all the things we did under one blanket. And when we sat down, and John, this is going to backhanded kind of answer your question. When we sat down to decide what we were going to name the new company, I started looking for aftermarket domain names. If those of you know me for a while knew I had SEO 411, we named the company SEO 411 because I found that as a used domain at GoDaddy. And I was like, oh, that's a good name. That'll work for a company name. John, you sent me Dr. Cherian. And when I had this conversation with him, we ended up, that's how he got Houston Acupuncture, because I was able to find that domain aftermarket. And so he's got a really old domain, even though he's a relatively built new business, still within his first year and a half. So I based the name on the company based on the web address I can find. So the first benchmark is 2004. There's a buffer here between 2005 and 2012 that I think those domains are not treated as favorably as the older ones, but they're still not treated as a new one. And then everything from 2013 forward, there's restrictors all over the place on these things. And it's very hard to put up a website and have that website rank out of the box when the domain is new. Some of the logic to that as I'm saying it, if I'm a new business, I don't have authority, I don't have credit, I don't have anything that indicates that I'm a serious person. I don't have anything that indicates that I didn't just spin that website up because I wanted to game Google system and get a #1 ranking and sell, a $5,000 worth of vitamins in 2 days before they come shut me down. Um, so one of the things I hope newer businesses walk away with, and anybody that listens to this in the future, is if you're buying a domain, you need to consider looking through the aftermarkets. And just bought one for a friend of mine that's called We Are Houston Real Estate. It's not ideal per se, but the thing is 15 years old, and I will end up being able to get that thing ranked pretty quickly. I'm going to give you a told me so minute. Is I took a website, I stuck it on an old domain, and then the owner of that site started kind of hemming and hawing at me about it. In the meantime, I had a few pages put up. I actually have rankings on that website that's only been up for less than 5 months because I found a really old one. Um, and because I found the really old one, it actually has rankings up against things like LoopNet and, so I what I want you to understand is that's a good way to give yourself an upper hand. If you haven't bought a domain, you need to look at aftermarket domains. Now, here's the bad news about aftermarket domains. Um, Aftermarket domains can be expensive. I think I spent in the ballpark of 10 grand for Vertical Web. It was worth every penny. I was able to drop SEO 411's website on it. In a matter of a week, we had all our rankings back. We never missed a beat. Like I said, we have this Houston acupuncture site. That site has done very well in a very relatively short period of time. It's I think had I done it any other way, I'm up against older websites and I don't think it would have went as well as it has. So that's been a good one. So the conversation I had with this business owner, he's like, well, you know, I did this for trademark, I did this for this. Well, I fortunately was able to find one for him that was registered in 2001. It was better than what I had hoped. It matches his brand. Um, Problem was it was 4 grand. They went ahead and bit the bullet and did it. Your domain name doesn't always have to match the name of your business, just like the Houston acupuncture. That's what he does. It's not who he is. So, I think that I want you all to understand that that's a delimiter because that's under the spam score piece. You need to have that removed. Here's the thing. Google will tell you that there is no sandbox. That doesn't exist. That doesn't happen. It happens. It was in their documentation. So there's so much here. There's so many pieces here. I mean, I've seen 125, 135 page documents written on this. And that's just to start with. Somebody went ahead and put together all 14,000 data points into a searchable database so they could be discussed. So what I want you to get is that for the first time, we have some basis that I can truly say, well, they accidentally put this thing out and somebody came and told somebody about it. But on the other hand, I think it raises the bar and it makes me not be, well, maybe she's saying the right thing, maybe she's not. I think those are things. So I want to answer the few questions in the scroll, and then I'm gonna start to come down on some of these other things so that we can talk through them all. First one says, I'm a life coach. I have a website, podcast, YouTube channel, all three with different names. should my name, different name, should my website be my name or my business's name? Well, I just got done saying to you, if you're asking what your website address should be, I'd be out in the aftermarket seeing what I could find that might work for me because it's that important to have an age domain. Um, mine are, with the word vertical web, I mean, some of mine are vertical web one, some are V web, there's a whole variance on them. So I'm not really married to what all these things are, but I mean, pretty much your brand should be uniform across. But if I had to go, if I had all the brand, everything was vertical web and verticalweb.com was not available and 29, 24, 25 years old, I would have found a different name. Um, at one point, I wanted to call this place Voodoo Marketing because that's what everybody tells me I do is voodoo. Not that I don't. I'm a devout Catholic, so I'm not a voodoo person. But I thought it was really cool. But when I sat down and I tried to look at all this, yeah, there was no way I could do that because there was not any iteration of something like that that had not aged. I'll also tell you a side story is I had a lighting company that I was affiliated with. And many years ago when they had started it, they had a doppy name with, 4 words and hyphens. But they bought a domain that was called LED Spot and it sat out. They put 10 pages of content on it and just threw it out on Google for I guess it was 10, 15 years before we came back and put some real stuff on it. It aged really nicely. So you can kind of coast along now, but if you have a bigger vision, I saw your question. I'll get to them in a minute. If I have a bigger vision now, I might be the time to go get it and put it on the shelf and let it age while you're doing something else. Um, So I will say that's a piece too. So, all right. So I have an existing website and a business name. Is it possible to transition to an aftermarket domain? Yes, it is. And I would want to look at that to see what you had versus to what you're transitioning to. The guy I talked to this week, he had a 10-year-old domain and wanted to go to a 1-year-old domain. I was like, okay, yeah, we're not doing that. And again, I told you, I have no problem giving somebody my opinion. If you want to do that, do it. There's web hosting, there are web SEO companies, there are a dime a dozen, and I'm sure you'll get somebody to take your money until you're sick of paying them, and then you can come back and talk to me and we'll have a serious conversation. I just got done saying that the domain needs to be old. Why are we talking about putting it on a 1-year-old website? That's the kind of thing that I can't answer your question per se because I don't have enough information to answer it. But if you're going from a domain that's 2 years old and you can find one that's 22 years old, yeah, let's transition. If you're going from a 22-year-old domain because you just think it's cooler, then we better find another 22-year-old domain or you're screwed. That's where this is kind of at. Now, I guess I'm being dramatic when I say that because maybe you're sitting on the bench for 2 years. Now, I don't know about you, but I can't go sit on a bench for 2 days. If you can go sit on a bench for 2 years, that's great and have at it. That's the kind of thing that you have to evaluate in all of this. All right, next one says, how can you see if the name is aftermarket or not? Okay. That's kind of the right question, but not really. Okay, so there's a website out there. It's called cdo.com. Okay, GoDaddy has them as well. You got to use that and you're going to use this, whois.sc. Okay. Those two websites, cdo.com will give you a list of aftermarket domains. Somebody else put after Nick. I will issue a warning about GoDaddy. They do not have a stringent enough policy, and sometimes domains are put on there that are not actually for sale. In addition, they don't have escrow accounts. CDO has an escrow account. So when I gave somebody $10,000, that $10,000 was held until I had my money until I had that domain safely in my account at OpenSRS. Before that, I had to say, yes, I have control of the domain before they release the funds. So I'm telling you SEDO, not because I already put it there. It's 3 lines up, SEDO.com. SEDO.com. It's in the scroll here. If you maybe you can't see it. Maybe I've got it wrong. Hold on. That's the problem. You can't see it. SEDO.com. There you go. There. Now does everyone see it? Okay. Thank you, Sabia, because yeah, right. Okay. All right. So cdo.com, and then the other one you need is whois.sc. The cdo.com you're looking for is aftermarkets. The whois.sc is so you can check the domain age. There's a few other things I would say to you if you're looking to buy an aftermarket domain and you find one that you're really attached to and it's more than a couple $100, you probably need to send me an email so I can just take a quick peek on it at archive.org to make sure that it's not penalized in any way. Some of these things have been damaged. I had that happen. We bought HoustonDentist.org. And at one point it had been used inappropriately and Google had a restrictor on it. And then the other one I had bought was something to do with golf clubs. And they had used it inappropriate. And that one would never move either. So I do want to issue a little bit of caution to you. In the sense that I wouldn't go give somebody $10,000 or $5,000 or even $500 without saying, shooting me an email and saying, hey, I'm really sure this is what I want to do. Can you make sure it's okay? What I don't want is go investigate this, go investigate this. Be really serious that that's what you want, because honestly, it takes me 30 minutes to do this and I'm not charging anybody. So I can't, I can't just randomly do it. So be pretty sure that you've done your due diligence and that's what you want to do before you have me put the rubber stamp on it. If you can do that for me, I've got no problem helping anybody. Okay. The next one says, I'm paying a guy a monthly fee to host my website, including making updates. I'm not getting the analytics or insights from him you're speaking about. And I asked him to make updates like adding videos, and it takes a while. Should I self-manage my own website or continue to pay someone? All right. What I'm talking about is not the service you have. Okay. I am not talking about updating your website, and I'm not even talking about hosting your website. We do that as part of our service, but our people have SEO services for us. They don't have website update services. So, I, you know, how do I want to answer this? I think anybody could manage their own website if they were willing to sit down and learn what they should and shouldn't be doing. The thing is that can you add a sentence? Yes. Sat with a customer today and did some optimization for him. And when I walked out the door, I said to him, I know I made this work look easy. Please don't run around and start sticking keywords in all over the place because you think that's what you just watched me do. I do this like breathing. So he said, that's fair. And he said, I won't do that. So, can you do it? Yeah. Should you do it? If you have the money to pay somebody, you probably should pay them. But then I worry about whether you're paying somebody that actually knows what they're doing or not. Because the same guy I was just telling you about that I went and talked to this week, their whole websites are a mess because he thought the person he had doing it knew what they were doing. And they knew what they were doing to a point, but they sure don't know all these fine details that are behind the scenes on this all. All right, so next one says, so what you're saying is the older the website, the better your business will be relative to restrictions. However, it's more than likely will cost you more. Why is this the case? What's happened in what year? And give some examples of these restrictions between the pros of 24 and 25. Okay, so we've known this for a long time. We started buying age domains because they admitted back, I guess it was 2010, 2009, that there was a sandbox. And then they said, there's not a sandbox. All right. These websites would sit with 1, 2, 5 people a day, and all of a sudden, like a light switch, they would light up and have 150 people the next day. And what it is they came out of a sandbox. So I have a friend that came to me, and they're a close personal friend, and they said to me, "Would you help me? I'm trying to get my real estate business going." So I said, "Yes." I said, "I have in holding a domain that was from 2001. I built the website, I put the web files on it, and the web files started ranking with almost, God, within days. There was no reason for this website to rank. Yes, other than the fact that I did it and it did it right, but there was no restrictions placed on it, so Google immediately dropped it in the listings. My business partner came back to me a couple months later, and she said, "I think we need to charge the person for the domain." And I said, "You know what? They're just trying to get their business going. I understand that, and they're a close friend of mine." I said, "What I'm going to do is," I said, "I'm just going to go get them a domain, move the files over, and we'll just call it a day." So I did that, and I asked my system admin to go ahead and take the first site down, which he never did. About 3 or 4 days ago, I was looking around and we were talking about office space in Kingwood. And I put in the domain. Now, mind you, the second copy of that website was up under a new domain, um, within a couple days. So it had been out there for about 6 months. It was a brand new domain. That old sucker that was from 2001, ranking number 2 after LoopNet. The other site, nowhere's to be found. So there's some documentation within this 14,000 points that seems to suggest that there is restrictions put on domains. There's demotions. I think they like to call them demotions. Um, they penalize things. Um, they keep a history of domains. They keep a history of every page. The older the domain, just the more successful it is quicker. Now, do I know that there'll ever be a point in time that there's a crossover that the same content on an old domain and the same content on a new domain once the new domain ages? Is there a crossover point? I've never tried that. Um, because I think it would be too hard to track putting that up that way. And we've always just gone to old domains. When I have a customer that is, I have another point of this. I have a customer that has a very old domain, and then they decided to do a spin out business. And for a lot of business reasons, the spin out business ended up needing to be put on a new domain. So 2 years ago, I registered the new domain. I moved the website over. I told them that it was going to be exactly the way it is. 2 years later, that thing's finally starting to come into its own. Same content. It's been tracking lower on traffic content. It was moved over exactly right. There's no penalties on it. It's just one was an old domain, one was a new domain. So, um, we can all say we never heard of this. Yeah, that's probably why I'm me and know this because I've been doing it forever. And most people that haven't been doing it for, some people doing this are not even as old as my domain. I mean, there is, I guess, that aspect of it. I mean, my domain right now is registered in 2001. Anybody born 2002 forward, yeah, my domain is older than you are as a human being. So, I don't know that you're going to have to go and find people like me that have been doing this since they were 28 years old. That's 28 years ago, so, but I have a lot of evidence that shows that I'm right, that I can show that it works perfectly. And where you're saying pre-2004 and 2005 and post-2005, remember there's another break point, that there's a second break point that's '05 through 2012. And then anything 2013 forward are counted as new. Now, of course, you know, over time, if somebody did it right, those ones that are 14, 15 years old are probably okay now. But I'm talking about people that just start their business, that need business, and then things are not working for 2 years. I mean, that's just not a good place to be. Okay. Next question said, did I hear you correctly when you spoke about GoDaddy? Did you say GoDaddy is basically renting you the website as long as you're paying for that? Well, no, that's not what I said, but all domains are rented per se. I bought my domain, but you have to pay the licensing on it every single year. It's just kind of like your driver's license, and then if you don't pay your license, you can't drive your car. It's the same concept. But what I did say about GoDaddy is they sell domains on their aftermarket that are not always for sale. And they don't have an escrow account, or at least they haven't the last time I tried it. I would not feel comfortable giving GoDaddy 10 grand and hope that somebody didn't abscond down the road with it while I'm waiting for them to release the domain to me. So I'm trying to I'm kind of trying to be nice on that piece of it, but I would not personally deal with GoDaddy on this kind of thing. All right, it says, do you have an opinion on search optimization plugins? Yes, it's rank math. I don't want to start talking about plugins. I've got 14,000 points to cover. Okay, so the answer is rank math. I don't use Yoast anymore. This is what I use. But I don't really use it because it's like training wheels. So if you need good training wheels, that's the one to go get. All right. And then it says, my yearly renewal is up with GoDaddy. How can I find the rank of my domain and maybe not using it anymore, but should I hold it to sell later? You could do that. My CFO is my business partner, and my we've been doing this together since 1998. And the other day she came to me and she says to me, she says, we must have 2 or 300 domains. What do you want to do with them? I said, I want to sit down and hold on to them. I said, because I never know when I'm going to need one. We have hundreds of domains that I have control over because they've been abandoned. They've been left here. I bought on a whim. I held on to. But what I'll tell you is, unless you own oilwell.com or something like Vertical Web, Cyberbucks, chair makers, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Good luck in finding somebody. It's not always that easy. I mean, I've had long-term care as affordable sitting out there for $750 for the better part of 10 years and nobody's ever touched it. They're fools because if they sold long-term care and took the domain, it would rank. But, I'm not going to cast stones at somebody. Anyway, all right. So let's kind of talk about this. There's about 3,000 modules that make up what ranks a website. Okay. And we've talked about them in this class. Your title tag, how your title tag is formulated, your header tags, how your header tags are formulated. But there's also things that they are looking at. Remember, I told you that one of the things is the Chrome behavior. They're looking at whether a click to your website is a good click or a bad click. Sounds like Linda. Are you a good witch or a bad witch? If you like The Wizard of Oz, you'll get what I'm talking about. If you don't like The Wizard of Oz, you probably should go watch it because you don't know what you're missing. Good click defined by it addresses the person's question. It gives them the information they want. A bad click is defined by they bounce back to Google. They don't stay on the website. They're not sticky. They don't come back. Your goal should be get the click, give the information, hold the end user on the page. because those send signals that your page is quality. Google knows things. For years, I've talked again, and I'm saying in this class, because if you've been around for a while, there's probably 70 or 80 of these videos sitting out there. A lot of it that you would thought was not accurate, some of it's not, but there's a lot of little tidbits in there that are still as germane today as they were the day I said them 4 years ago. If you put up a website and Google has no idea what it's about, they are not ranking your website. If you put a page on a website that you don't tell Google what it's about, they don't know what the page is about, they're not ranking the page. It's pretty simple. So, if I use my realtor friend, I had a discussion with her last night about all of this. And I wanted to put commercial real estate for sale, Hype, Houston, and Kingwood. And her answer to me is that's ugly. You can't put that there. I like the picture we picked for the background. Why do we have to put this here? Well, you got to put it there if you want Google to know what the website's about. But why? Well, you got to put where you sell real estate. You got to say what kind of real estate you sell. You got to say what cities you're in. You have to send the signals, because if you don't, they're not ranking your page. All right. So I can't tell you how many times, and I wish that we were sometimes back in person on some of these, because I can't tell you how many times we have done this exercise and had you guys give me your web pages, and inevitably the pages are blank. And you say to me, well, see, it's there. And I say to you, you made a picture. You can't make a picture. You have to actually put words on a page and use your typewriter or your keyboard and utilize it. You cannot just make a picture in Canva and publish the picture, because guess what's not going to happen? You're not going to rank. You'll have no ranking. See, guilty. I bet you there's probably 10 other people in this room that are just as guilty as you are. You're just the only one willing to admit it. So those are things you've got to consider. When you go and you write a page and you don't say that you're a real estate agent, guess what they don't know you are? A real estate agent. So you have to put words around your page that let Google know what you need, what they do. You know, on some level, some of this is easy as, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it must be a duck. And most of you have, it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, but you're actually a platypus. So when you have that disconnect, website doesn't rank. So these are things, Byron, it'll be up on the site. I didn't know you were here, but it'll be up on the site probably by the end of next week at the latest. So that should help you. So with that said, let's see, where am I? So I want to, as I'm saying that, let's see, make sure we have. All right, well, it doesn't flow, may not really be a thing. Honestly, sometimes I don't know if I care if it flows. I have an email in my mailbox from somebody that says, you say why this, but then you don't ever explain what the why is. Well, I put the why there for Google's benefit. I'm sure the end user's not even going to see it. Well, see, this is the problem. I built mine on GoDaddy, but it limits the number of keywords you can add. Well, you shouldn't be adding keywords. Let's start with that. They should be typed on a page, but you shouldn't be adding keywords to some part of the back end of GoDaddy. You also shouldn't be building the website in GoDaddy, because Google doesn't understand GoDaddy. So you might as well just not even worry about it, because you're not going to rank anyway using that. Let's see. So let's talk about this. So sticky They want people to stay with you. They're using Chrome um, to see how long you stay on a web page. They track all of that in Google Analytics. For the longest time, I wouldn't even set up analytics because I didn't want them. Um, I didn't want them to make assumptions about my website. But it became apparent that if you didn't have analytics, you had a problem. So we've added analytics, we've added search consoles. So Google has insights to every one of my websites at this point. For better or for worse, they do. The busier, more trafficked ones have better results. The less trafficked ones don't. So let me see before I go to the next thing, because I want to talk about demotions here in a second. Yep, and there too, some websites builds kind of give you a search engine tip. Okay, I need to have my site audited. Just call the office and we can talk about it. Um, I'm happy with mine. It doesn't flow. I think I addressed that. Don't build your website with GoDaddy. That's about as simple as I can say. This person says, I'm on Who Is, and I'm seeing a lot of history information. Do these indicate anything about how many people have had it and if it's an ineffective site? Um, yes and no. Uh, if it bounces, let's say it was in the United States and then it bounced out to Bahrain and then it comes back to the United States and it went to Pakistan, I'd be a little bit worried about why it was doing a globe-trotting situation. So that would be the first thing I would say on that. Sometimes you can tell, and sometimes it's just somebody's IP address has changed or they changed their hosting company. Again, it would probably be something that, I need to look at. But that's a whole big thing. So really the place to go is archive.org and see if it was ever a porn site or a link site. I mean, if it never was used, then you're okay. But if it's been used, how was it used? What was it used for? Was it a link farm? Was it a porn site? What was it? And now what is it? This says, I noticed people are able to locate my business now by searching Google. I thought I was doing good. Okay, so there's a question there. I mean, are they looking for accountant Houston on a certain street? I mean, are they putting the name of your business in? I mean, it will be on YouTube and it will be on the website. But I think the thing is I'm getting traffic and that's I'm getting people, they're able to find me now as a gooder. Um, they're looking for drug testing near me and they just happen to be. So if you're in a good area of people needing drug testing, I can see that may be working. So, and I mean, now, and I guess then it becomes how many people are finding you because drug testing is a huge search term. So there's a lot of variables to that. I mean, but if you're kind of happy with what it is, then if you've got the near me term, I mean, what other terms I guess do you have? I mean, that's a whole that's a conversation that probably should be had offline. All right, let's see. History of those people locating. So this one says recommend website hosts. Well, that's hard. I hate them all, so I started my own. That kind of should tell you everything you need to know in that one sentence. Should I rebuild my website or move the site? I would say if it's in GoDaddy, I would get it out of GoDaddy. Um, meaning GoDaddy's builder and get it into a WordPress.org build, not a WordPress.com build. I wouldn't go with another cookie cutter situation. I would go with a WordPress.org and get it built into that. All right, this one says, I'm correct. That's a viable business. I heard the best definition of buying into crypto was buying into crypto pre-2012, like buying into New York real estate. Yes, that's pretty much your analogy is correct. When you buy is what you do. Yes, there's a recording, and no, Wix is no good either. They say they're improving. I've not really seen anything that leads me to believe they're improving anything because it's still a platform. All right, so let's talk a little bit more. They're not giving, they didn't give us a specific on weights, just that they're existing. So some of the things that I'm saying to you, there wasn't a weight on them, but I'm going to tell you based on my experience. I actually, when I do this, I'm going to go through it and I'm going to actually weight what I think. We've talked about siloing and anchor text in this class before, meaning putting like items together. Um, yes, we offer consulting offline. You just have to call my office in the morning and call myself or Monica, and we'll get you an appointment, and we do that. We've talked about siloing, putting things together, and interlinking. Your anchor text and the link text is very, very important. Now, I told you this whole story about links and offsite links. I am going to say that I have been saying for years that you can offset a bad link profile with a really good internal link structure. And people have said to me, no, I have done it in several occasions. And should I be able to get better links, of course, everything would improve. But I was able to utilize internal links and internal linking structure to help offset the lack of links. You have to do it right. You have to know how to strategically point things in. But can it be done? Yes. It was good to see it in black and white that the internal linking structure counts just as much as the external linking structure. I guess you could say it's a little bit less, but it's not dramatically less. And the reason I knew this is because I had I'll tell you in this class, I'll say you need 100 pages, and everybody goes, EGAT's 100 pages, and throws their hands up and gets all upset. And the reason you need 100 pages is because you need the stuff to link together. Google is not going to rank you at a 3-page website, because then I have 3 links pointing at each other and it's a nothing burger. But if you have 100 pages, you have multiple opportunities to link those together. And if you know anything about the way the the exponents of numbers works, you know that you'll end up with thousands of links just simply because of the way the link thing works, or the way the numbers exponentially grow. So with that said, I would strongly urge you to go back over some of the technical SEO classes I've given that talk about how to link and string your website together and how to put them together. And the reason why I'm saying that is because if you do it right and you put things together right, it will pay off and it will reward you, and you won't have to worry about so much chasing from the outside. You've done it from the inside. Okay. So it's not a workaround, but this sort of validated. The other thing that I thought was interesting is people use the word click here quite a bit. And what Google is saying is they look around that click here to see what it's in regard to. Okay. So if I put the word click here, and to the left of it, it says Beth Guide is awesome. That doesn't give it a context for what we do. But if it says, if you want awesome web design or SEO services, click here, it knows that that link for click here goes back to the SEO or the web design. So be careful. Words have meanings, and what you put around them have meanings. It's very important to use the right words around it, because guess what? They know what the words mean. They're giving you link credit for click here if it's linked to the right situation. Again, if it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, if I have a services page and I say I do tax services, I better have a tax service page. And my tax services overview page should link to my what are my tax services page. So I mean, like I said, we have classes on siloing. You guys really should do that. I'm going to make a blanket statement here just because I have to, and I almost want to start leading every single class we give from here on out with this sentence. You guys are all asking about platforms, okay? And I kind of see it there, and that's fine. It's great that you're asking. WordPress is the way to go. I don't own stock in WordPress. I don't have any monetary influence for WordPress, but there is no other way at this point to build a website than utilizing WordPress if you're serious about doing the things I'm talking about. If you're going to invest your time and invest in a website, the only viable option is WordPress.org. Okay. Um, as far as the e-commerce platform part of it, there's many out there, Shopify, BigCommerce, blah, 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 blah. I will tell you, you should be using the WooCommerce functionality with inside WordPress. Okay. There really is no viable alternative to it unless you're going to write it by hand. Now, I could say I have a large enterprise site that's running in some weird stuff that it's doing just fine, but it's also got enough backlinks that it'll never have to worry. So as long as it's reasonably okay on the front side, you can do whatever you want with it on the back side. So there becomes, there becomes a ebb and a flow to this discussion about, which is what and where is what. And unfortunately, everything is kind of situational. You notice that some of you, I can't actually answer until you show me something. You show me something, I can pretty much answer it. Um, so another thing that we're going to talk about is I want to talk about, can you adjust the page? What should the dates be? So you can have a really old page, and over time, it's going to start to dwindle. Its value is going to start to dwindle. The page rankings are going to start to dwindle. And you need to adjust the information on that page to make sure that page matches where it needs to be. So you should always be in there tinkering with it. If the page ranks, great, don't touch it. But the second it starts to slide, you should be in there tinkering with it. For someone that is starting from scratch with very little money, almost nothing, a Canva website should be used. No, a Canva website does not use these principles. This is the problem. And this is the chicken and the egg situation. So WordPress is free and hosting is, $11. All right. So we're not talking crazy money. Now, I used to say you could go out to eat, but for $11, you might find yourself in the drive-through window at Burger King. All right. So, $11 is not what it used to be. But, at the end of the day, no, a Canva website does not use the right principles. A Wix website does not use the right principles. If your goal is to utilize your website to gain traffic, which is what it should be, you need to go ahead and bite the bullet on some of this and do it. It's not necessarily if you have the time to go figure out Canva, there's videos all over the internet for WordPress. It's not particularly, I was going to say, it's not particularly difficult. Like on ours, when we do it, we give everybody an Elementor license. There's more videos on how to use Elementor on Elementor's own website, that all it is just a little time and elbow grease. But there is nothing fast about this. There is nothing, hey, I'm going to go push a few buttons and it's going to make me a website. That is true. But if you want a website that's going to get organic traffic to it, that is not happening. Your goal should be to have organic traffic. And I mean, I can't, from every other aspect of business, I can't stress that enough. I can't tell you how many people that has heard that message through the years and built very strong businesses because their website was a sales tool. Somebody said, yes, I will. Somebody said, what's the difference between WordPress.org and WordPress.com? WordPress.com is a platform. It's limited. There's only so much you can do. WordPress.org is fully customizable. You can pull it down. You can add whatever plugins you want, and there's not restrictions. The other thing is, anytime I say the word platform, what I'm saying to you is that it is a cookie cutter, and Google's not in the business of ranking cookie cutters. Okay. So you need to, it's like well, I want to win. I don't know. I want to win a car race. All I have is a Prius. Well, you're not going to win a car race with a Prius. So either you need a different car or you need to know you're not going to win the race. I mean, it's really one or the other. I mean, you can't this is not a situation where well, I can just have it all. Does that concept hold true for themes within WordPress? Yes. Yes, it does, but I'm going to say all right. Again, I am going to say this one this way. We sell WordPress web hosting. Our WordPress web hosting has all the tools already baked into it. So it's got the right themes, it's got the right tools, it's got everything is there, and in most cases the licenses are free. That we've just made that commitment, especially on the lower end stuff to help small business, and we just put it there. So um yeah, yeah, there's bad WordPress themes and then there's good WordPress themes. There's bad WordPress builders. There's good WordPress builders. I mean, we've been using everything from Astra and using Elementor and done so pretty handily. It works like a champ. It does what it needs to do. I was looking back at an old page, and this is just a FYI point. I was looking back at an old page that we had built about 5 years ago. And what I was looking at is one of the things that I go back and look at is I go, okay, I want to rank on business attorney. So where's my website ranking on business attorney? Um, and when I look at it, when I looked at it, we were on the second page, so I went to go see what the page was. And inside of there, the website that website was built with WP Bakery, and the H3 tags the H tags were not set right, and Google wasn't picking them up. So although constructually the page was correct because of whatever this thing is they used to put the icon box in, so we fixed it and now the page ranks. So that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. That I mean I have to go back and look at my own stuff too to make sure it hasn't aged out right. And no, again, this is not, I did this. Is it better than? No, the answer is WordPress. Period. End of story. There is no compare this, compare that. WordPress. What is the opinion of Divi Theme Builder? Divi, technically, Google's a little bit happier with it than it is Elementor, but the ability to use Divi's really freaking hard to use. So if I had to decide whether Divi Builder or Elementor, I'm going to pick Elementor because of ease of use. If I was in something super, 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 super competitive, I might say you've been using it for a few years and okay with it. If you're okay with it, then yeah, I'm okay with Divi because Divi at least does a reasonable. It's low on the code list. Like it's not got a lot of bloat behind it. So if you're comfortable with it, have at it. You're in good shape. So, all right. See, you guys are doing exactly what I'm saying not to do. The Thrive architecture is all right. Yeah. The answer is WordPress, not with anything like yeah. The Thrive architecture. I tried it for 5 minutes and I threw it right out the window. All right. Yeah, Elementors. I'm fine with Elementor on WordPress and an Astra theme. You put those two together, it's pretty lightweight. All right, so I want to talk about updating your content, changing your content, making sure that you've got it. Google's looking for freshness. So if you're not adding anything fresh to your website, then you have a problem. If you are changing an older page, there is probably some wisdom to changing the publication date in the back end of the website if you've added to it. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. I will tell you that I personally do not change the dates on my pages. However, I also have 13 years of history there, so I have a expert factor going on there. So it's okay. Photos don't help you. Photos don't help you. I'm talking about content. Photos have no bearing. The other thing I want to talk about is demotions. Okay, so they can lower your rankings and demote your website and suppress your website based on a few things. Okay, one is the link doesn't match the target. So I have a link, I make a link, and the link says duck and it goes to a moose page. Well, that's immediately going to get dinged because if it says it's a duck and it's linking to a duck, it should be a duck. It shouldn't be a moose. So the links always need to match the target. If the signals indicate user dissatisfaction, okay, bouncing off, people come to the page and they leave, people don't stay on the page. They can tell, like, if it's just a bot crawling the internet or it's a hacker guy, so if you get 500 people from Russia on a Tuesday evening, that they're not going to penalize you for that because they understand it was a bot attack. So somebody asked where you can go to get the replay. If you go to verticalweb.com, it'll be way down on the bottom of the homepage with the blog links. It's also under the class links. So there's that piece. So it's going to be on Vertical Web's website. All right, so product reviews. If you got bad product reviews, you can be demoted. If you get bad reviews about your business and your business is all 1-star ratings, you could be demoted. You want to have, you can have a 4.8 or a 4.7 or a 4.6. You don't have to have a 5.0. It's not a tragedy if you get a bad review. It is a tragedy if you have all bad reviews except for one good review. That's where the problem lies. So you want to make sure that you have good reviews, you have product reviews on your website, and if the product reviews are there, that they're good products. So if I have a yo-yo and everybody has a 1 on the product review, guess what they're going to do? They're not going to rank that yo-yo anymore because it has a 1 on the product review. Location can be a problem if you're trying to game their location system. I'd be careful with that. You can't spam your location. You can't give it a wrong location. We kind of talked about last time in our class we talked about Google Maps. Just be careful with that. Porn gets a demotion. And sometimes exact match domains get a demotion. If they think you bought the domain simply to game their system, they will penalize it. And the other way, and this is a little bit hard to explain, but you remember I told you make links. I'm going to go put out a press release. If you have an exact match domain and you put out a press release, sometimes that exact match domain will look like you're trying to game their system. So they will demote the site for that. So they will suppress your website for bad links, malicious links, bad behavior. All these things are in there. They want your links to try to be relevant. So like we have a lot of links from design directories, academic institutions. There's a lot of links that we have that are somewhat the same, and that helps reinforce that what we're doing. But with that said, they understand that you may get a link from something that's somewhat unrelated, and it does that. The other thing is don't forget about your internal pages as well as your external pages. So if I make a page, I do something that has relation to web design, I actually don't point it to the home page. I point it to the web design page. I point it to pages that need the most amount of links and the most amount of help. I try to spread the link equity around across the site and not just send it to one page on the site. It makes that piece of it work better. Let's see, what else do I have? I mean, there's just so much. I'm just trying to think what I can touch. let's kind of go through some of these other, I keep kind of coming back to links being a big deal, and they really are. The next thing is we're going to talk about, I guess, is whether a piece of content is really good. So first of all, everybody should have an author box on their website that says who wrote every single page on the website. So if you're the writer of the website, you should have an author box. You should not be using AI to write your pages. I'm going to say that now, probably for the next 15 years. Do not use AI to write the pages on your website. Period. End of story. All right. And we can all argue the merit on this, and Google says it's okay, and blah, 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 blah. And I'm here to tell you that, first of all, they're telling people they can do it and then going around and demoting those websites. Second of all, they are going to get more stringent about blocking those websites. And then third of all, if you do it right, you can do it. But the problem with doing it is you need to rewrite it. So we've talked in this class before about my page that talks about Google penalties that I wrote in an hour and a half. That's 4,000 words that I did it. Yeah, it's not rewrite. That's the problem. That it is not rewrite. It is take the concept and write it from scratch. What information do you add to it? What information shows you're an expert? Because if you just rewrite what's coming out of an AI engine, guess what? It's already on the internet. There's no unique thought to apply to that. And they are penalizing this. They deleted about 40% of pages just simply because they thought they were no good. All right. So it's not just as easy as to rewrite the page. You have to add your own knowledge, your own expertise. So I may say, give me, and I'll tell you, I just had this happen, and I'm gonna go back and get this addressed. I may say, give me 5 reasons to do a seafood boil. And I give them the 5 reasons, and I say, okay, go write a page that covers this. Well, the page I had written was for a in-house restaurant, not for a go home and take the seafood boil back to your house. They wrote what I asked them to write, but they missed who they were writing it for. So you have to really be careful on how you do this. I am not an advocate of rewriting anything. I am an advocate of, hey, what should my page cover? Oh, my brain says this is what I think about this, and I write it about what I think about it. And I'm giving you a whole class tonight that's my opinion. I've been reading. I've got 125 more pages to read, I think. But I'm reading this, and then I'm putting it through my own filter. Oh, yep, that's what I suspected. Age of domains validated. I've suspected that for years. Silos. Internal links are internal links are just as important as external links, and I can help promote my internal links and help offset not having so many external links. Okay, good to know. Check. So I've been going through this with my knowledge, saying, okay, I agree with this, or I see this is how this can manifest itself. They're using successful clicks, and what do I need to drive a successful click? What does that really mean? And then what do I have to do to make sure I'm telling you guys the right way to do that? Yeah, it says if you're using AI, and thank you for saying my opinion is valid. I appreciate that. It says if you use AI, basically you're reusing a template that's being used by many websites. Yeah, that's kind of what it is. So I read a sentence and I say, okay, I need to have more successful clicks to my website. It's like this whole thing that I dreamed up of putting the video of this class and the podcast on this class that I now have taken through the middle of my entire business. I went as far as not just putting the video. And if you notice, a lot of people put the video. I actually went and take the audio, split the audio out and put it on a podcast server. And the podcast is way more popular than the actual videos. Because I think the thing is, most people can go drive around and listen to me in a car while they're sitting in Houston traffic that now seems to be rivaling LA. And as they're sitting there doing that, they can listen and they can learn and they can be part of this. And the podcast has just, to my mind, it's way more than the YouTube channel. YouTube channel has listens, but and watches, but it doesn't have anywheres near the podcast does. I put both of them on the same page. All right. So those things are getting baked in and they're getting reported back to Google. So when somebody goes to that page and they watch it on the page or they listen off that page, they find me, they go add me through Apple, whatever the heck they do. There's like 3 layers of. One is I've got my own podcast that actually Apple's allowing to say. 2 is, when Beth Guide speaks, people listen. Apparently, I guess that's a thing. Although it doesn't happen at home all the time, so I don't know. Maybe you guys need to come to my house. Then, I go down I'm sending a signal off the web page. So I'm sending Google all these signals about how valid a person I am. Now, do I think I need to validate myself to Google on a regular basis? No. Do I think it makes me unhappy that I have to validate my business to Google on a regular basis? Yes. Do I really Does it really kind of make me mad that Google has to evaluate what kind of person I think I am before they put my webpage up? Yeah, kind of, sort of, it does. But look, that's the world we live in. If I'm going to tell you that's where I'm getting my business from, I mean, that's where I'm getting my business from. So I mean, it's one aspect. One thing I will say is I learned to diversify and I don't have 100% in Google anymore. I, we do chamber events and, all this other kind of stuff. Um, but at the end of the day, I get business off Google. I mean, I think I've got more, the business off Google I've got has been equivalent to all the other channels. So when I evaluate, Google is giving me business dollar wise. They're all, they're somewhat even. Guys, I keep saying the same thing. Forget about Wix, forget about GoDaddy, forget about the WordPress is the only answer. These other businesses are not in business to um rank you. They don't really care. So they put these little labels on them and then forget about it. I mean, you guys can do what you want. There's nobody that ever could pay me enough to go and do anything with Wix, with SEO AI. I can use some things as a tool to do a little bit of research to make sure I'm kind of on point. I'm past the point in my life that I need an AI engine. I'm basically my own AI engine. I literally sat in an office today, optimized the page, had one of my staff run through it, and they said, "You actually just made this thing 100% on the first try." Yep, I did. Because I understand where you guys might need some training wheels, but any of these companies that are providing this, they're not doing it. But the fact that you're asking me about Wix, the answer is WordPress is the answer. There's no other answer. I'm sorry that that's it, but there's no other answer. So, and if you're late to, that's okay. I mean, I'm trying not to, what I don't want to get is in this whole thing with recommendation. There's so much here that I'm trying to get out to you guys. Um, Anyway, all right. So let's see. So we've got successful links. We've got lingering on a page. We've got how do we hold them to a page? Authorship is very, very, very important. So if you have an SEO company you're paying, who posts the content to your website and what name is it under? Is it under your name or is it under their name? If it's under their name, it needs to be changed to your name with an author box immediately. Capital immediately. I don't even know how else to say that. You have to get the credit for your page. They are looking for the authorship of a page and they want to know who wrote a page. You have to do that. Okay. So If you're using WordPress, there's authorship boxes. The one I use is Starbox. That's what we do. But that's the important thing. Site authority. Don't forget immediate link in authorship boxes for WordPress Elementor is good. And don't forget. Yeah. It's Starbox. Put Starbox down. That's the one we're using. It puts it across it, and it also creates interlinks between those pages. Starbox is the answer. All right. Yeah. Starbox is the answer. Okay. All right. So hold on a minute. With Google, I want to talk about site authority. They say it's not a thing, but they also have come back and they're after low quality content. Your site cannot be authoritative if you've got bad content on it. So let's kind of take this Wix, Weebly, Squarespace, everybody not doing WordPress. You can't put up the volume of pages that you need to put up in those platforms. They often don't link together right. They don't create the authority that those pages need. And then if you just put up a page that says, and I see this from you guys so much, if you put up a page that just, hi, these are the services I offer, and it's got 5 services on a page and that's it, they're not ranking that page. You got to have about 700 words on those pages for those pages to become valid pages. So you've got to be really, really, really super careful that you are making sure that you are sending the right signals. And even though they say there's no site authority and they say they haven't done it, they denied it for years, lo and behold, there is something in there called site authority. It's in there in these 14,000 points that I'm talking about. Some point I'm going to talk to you about this nav thing that they've got, that they put in there, that they talk about. Let's see. We talked about Chrome data in total. So they're totaling all the browser rankings from Chrome. You can't see them. That's a problem. All right. That's a really big problem. Yeah. 700 more hyperlink pages. Yep, exactly. Good. Thank you for being the note taker there. That's good. Sandra's not here unless you're Sandra in disguise. Good job. All right. They also have a line in there that's called small personal sites. For sites that they say are small and personal, some people speculated that maybe Google could be demoting or boosting those sites. I am here to tell you that they are demoting those websites. I deal with so many small business websites up one side and down the other. I can't even begin to tell you. And if I took a small business website and put 3 pages on a domain and acted like a small personal website, I'm I'm saying, I guess say 99% sure they're going to weight that site down. Because again, if you think like them, you'll understand it. If you're putting up a 3-page small personal website, you are not doing anything to add to the betterment of the internet. You're not adding anything that makes the internet a better place. So I think they're going to suppress it for sure. All right. So some people are saying I'm not right on that, but I'm going to put my 28 years of experience down and say, yeah. Now, if you come back into the local space only, possibly I could see you make the argument that small personal website, rank it local and let it sit in the local map packs. But I think what they're doing is they're coming in and they're suppressing those websites. They also whitelist sites based on what they and then remove all restrictors, which allows things to come up to the top. So when we had the COVID information, some of those COVID sites were whitelisted. Sometimes election they have line items in there that are called election authority and COVID local authority, and they are acting, it seems like the code insinuates that they're acting with those on a whitelist. So, some of that they're removing, um, and that's a problem. They store your registration information. So that's another thing. And this is a game I've been playing with them forever. I also am going to tell you two things on this. Something just hit me as it went to come out of my head. They know what the name servers were on domains and what the name servers have been on domains. They know what the registration information is on the domain, and they want to know whether that registration information has changed. And if it's changed, how often does it change and what does it change to? Um, for us, I've always said that my name servers seem to add a boost to it. What I will say is when we changed over to vertical web, I did change some of those name servers. I think I need to reevaluate going back and using the original name servers for the company. Based on this information, I think I may actually need to have a conversation with my system admin and talk about doing that, because we've used the vertical web and VWeb domains. Now, what I will say is when I bought VWeb, I didn't spend the money up for it that I did. But it is an old domain. So no domain I own that I do business with is less than 20 years old at this point. So I have no domain younger than 20 years old. So that's another piece of this. Page titles, extremely important. There's a score match in there and it says title match score, and it says how well does the title match the query, which is pretty much obvious to me, because if I type in Houston real estate and my title tag is Houston real estate, you can just see it down the page and why and how they're picking things. So just know that this is all out there. Um, I was saying that to someone not too long ago that I would love to sit down and write a book about all this. The problem is if I sat down and wrote a book about all of this, I wouldn't have the time to do this. And I think it's more important to help. Again, that's why I still live paycheck to paycheck where other people are bazillionaires. I think it's more important to help you guys than it is for me to sit down and write a book. So I appreciate all of that, and maybe someday I will. But for the moment, all this is in my head, and I kind of bring it here and try to help you guys, be more successful and help you guys do a better job of things. Um, in that vein, I really, really, really kind of feel like had I came into this industry 10 years later than what I did, I don't know that I would have adapted to all these little things. And some of this is experience. So when I look down this list, I know Google stores domain name registration information. I know that they know who owns things. I know that they know. I will tell you, there's one little gig I got going on right now that they can't tell. And maybe some in the SEO industry will be unhappy for me to say this out loud, but I'm going to say it. We work with Amazon, and I can spin up an instance on an IP that they don't know that it's me. So Amazon has given some layer of invisibility that we wouldn't have normally had because we used to have an old class C when we did everything, and so I had like my own IP block. And now that we're at Amazon, we're finding that we can spin stuff up on an IP and we're kind of okay with it, and they're not really penalizing us for having a newer IP or an IP that's just been used. So it's been an interesting experience to not have a Class C anymore. I think we walked away from Amazon about 3 years ago. I guess it's been 3 years, hardly it's been going for 2 years. I guess it's been 3 years. So, but I mean, you can't tell where sites are hosted. You can't tell because you got Amazon running through the middle of all of this, obfuscating it. So, okay, let's see. We're at the end, and I don't want Sabia have to stay extra. It says you have one domain, go to WordPress, And with that domain, add the site add pages, click a button. It's called hyperlinks. Good luck. Yeah, that's pretty much okay. Write a book. I could write a book. I could write a book about each class because that they really could use a book. I need to go. Thank you. You're welcome. This says, you give me ideas. I will start playing with your notes taker for you. I could email them to you if you'd like. I am nominating myself as your ghostwriter. Okay. All right. Well, you can be a ghostwriter if you want. I could use a good ghostwriter every now and then. Um, anyway, my portfolio is pure HTML and CSS, no CMS. All right, but you can't keep up anymore. That's the problem with the HTML web pages. They have to be linked together properly. And the other thing is the CMSs generate more pages. All right, I am going to call this quits. Maybe what I'll do is do a follow-up and we'll see if I can come up with more things in this crazy thing to keep adding. Maybe that's so. All right, HostGator no bueno, in my opinion. Just saying. Anyway.
Thank you, Beth.
Okay. You're welcome,
Thank
team.
you very much. Wonderful. You had lots of questions, and I'm sure you had lots of answers to
I
appreciate
think
it.
we answered everybody. I think
Yeah,
everybody got an answer
yeah,
tonight. I'm
yeah,
hoping.
you did. You did. Thank you so much. Everybody,
You're
see you
welcome.
again next month.
We'll
So,
be back next month. I may do part two of this because it's that crazy
okay,
the
good,
situation. All
good.
right.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Bye. Bye.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone. All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye. That's a wrap for this week's Internet Marketing Clinic. We'll see you next week. Thank you.